Beneath the lurid, storm-thick sky of Vikros, the Empire's capital, the air thrummed with menace and pride. On this world, survival was not a gift, but a reward for the relentless. Every lifeform was a predator, and every day was a new trial by ice, fire, and acid rain. The Vecroni, the apex of evolution, wore their scars with reverence, considering themselves the only species worthy of the title Deathworlder. Their ancestors had conquered monsters and famine. Their enemies had become dust beneath their claws. Their empire stretched across 4 moons, built on laws as old as the roots of their black-barked forests. The Vecroni society thrived under the Elders' law, ancient and immutable. The law decreed that no Vecroni would ever speak to, shelter, or aid a human. For generations, the stories of Earthlings had been twisted into cautionary tales. Humans were frail, pitiable things from a green, temperate world. No match for Vecroni might. The true reason for the law, though, was locked away in the Elders' private councils. Whispers said a single encounter, centuries ago, had shaken the Elders, had left them fearing not violence, but a contagion of thought, a rot that could unravel Vecroni order. Even in the city's heart, among the marble towers and gleaming weapons, not all shared the Elders' certitude. Vecroni youth, especially those yet to earn their second set of stripes, sometimes dared to ask why the law was needed at all. Why bar contact with such a pathetic species? What did the Elders truly fear? These questions simmered beneath the surface, forbidden but alive. One of these youth, Rylus, could not stop wondering. She kept her thoughts hidden behind the practiced scowl of a soldier in training. Her claws were sharp, her eyes brighter still, a mind honed by curiosity, not just brutality. The day began like any other, training at dawn, drills through the boiling marshes, and silent meals in the Hall of Bones. Rylus excelled in every test, yet her mind wandered. She watched the Elders parade past, towering and adorned in etched armor, their faces hard as stone. She studied the other initiates, eager and proud, their ambitions tethered to tradition. She wondered what they would do if they knew the truth of the law. As the sun scorched the distant peaks and cast the city in bruised shadows, word reached the hall. A storm-wrecked object had plummeted from the sky and landed beyond the dead spires. No ordinary comet. This was a ship, battered and foreign. The Elders sent patrols at once. Whispers flickered through the ranks. It might be human. Rylus's pulse thudded. She remembered the stories. She remembered the fear in her father's voice when he spoke of the law, even as he laughed at the weakness of Earthlings. She remembered the tremor that ran through her mother's hands, years ago, when an old friend was taken away for asking too many questions. She had never understood the terror until now, as the possibility of meeting a forbidden human drew near. The city braced itself. Patrols returned with wreckage, strange metals, burned cloth, shards of something unmistakably human. The Elders ordered a lockdown, no one in or out of the city's outer ring. Yet Rylus, reckless and drawn by an impulse she could not name, slipped away under cover of darkness. The law was absolute, but so was her need to see for herself what the Elders truly feared. She moved fast and silent, each breath frosting in the acid-tinged air, her senses straining for any sign of life or death. What she found, in a crater rimmed with melted glass, was not a monster, nor a frail shadow, but a battered survivor clutching a shattered beacon, a human, flesh torn and bloodied, gaze still fierce. Rylus stood over him, every instinct screaming caution, but the human did not flinch. He did not beg. He simply met her stare, his lips set in grim determination. In that moment, Rylus felt the first crack in everything she thought she knew, and for the first time, she wondered who, exactly, the Deathworlders truly were. The world changed for Rylus the moment she saw the human, broken but alive, in the glass-rimmed crater. He was a contradiction, bleeding, his suit torn, but his jaw set, his eyes tracking her every movement. He said nothing as she approached, measuring her not as prey, but as another survivor. The law screamed in Rylas's mind, "Turn away, report him, let the elders finish what gravity had started." Yet she hesitated. She saw in his eyes not fear, but the familiar glint of someone who refused to die quietly. She knelt beside him, hand steady, and produced a ration pack and water. He accepted both with a nod, still silent. His wounds were bad. Acid burns along his arm, a fracture at the collarbone, blood seeping from a dozen small cuts. She worked quickly, applying stems and binding where she could, the way she'd learned in barracks, always keeping an ear tuned for patrols. Each breath felt like an act of rebellion, every heartbeat a countdown. They communicated in fragments. He understood her words, halting and rough, learned from intercepts and warnings broadcast by the elders. She learned his name, Aaron, and that he was not a soldier, but a technician, stranded by accident. He asked her why she helped. She said nothing at first. The truth? She wanted to see what the elders feared. Over the next cycle, Rylas returned again and again, each time bringing food, medicine, scraps from the city's edge. Aaron, despite the pain, fixed his beacon, retooled shattered devices, built a small shielded fire from the ship's debris. She watched him adapt, turning ruin into survival. His resilience was quiet, methodical, not born of muscle or claws, but stubborn will. With time, a fragile trust grew. He taught her how to seal wounds with the heat from a battery core. She showed him which mosses drew toxins from the blood. They swapped stories in the dark, their voices low to avoid patrols. He spoke of earth, of rain that was only water, of forests thick with animals that killed for food but not for pride. She told him of Vikros, of survival as virtue, of how the law was enforced with exile or worse. He listened without judgment. She realized she wanted him to live, not just to satisfy her curiosity, but because she could no longer accept the elders' word alone. The longer Aaron survived, the more Rylas understood. She saw that the elders' fear was not misplaced. Humans did not threaten with claws or venom, but with a refusal to surrender, with the ability to inspire questions, with the courage to challenge a fate handed down by others. Aaron became more than a wounded castaway. He was proof that survival was not just a function of strength. He asked her, one night, why her people feared his. She answered, "Because you remind us that nothing is unchangeable." But time worked against them. The elders intensified their search, the air tense with dread. Rylas knew that discovery meant death for Aaron and disgrace, maybe worse, for herself. Yet she could not stop. Her world, for so long governed by law and violence, now spun around a single stubborn human whose presence made her see her people with new eyes. Each act of kindness was now defiance. Each day he lived was proof that the law could be broken, and perhaps should be. In those sleepless nights, a plan began to form, a plan born not from fear, but from the hope that survival could mean more than obedience. Rylas understood now that it was never human violence the elders feared. It was the spark they brought. It was the way survival became a choice, not a sentence. And as the searchlights combed the horizon, she realized she was already too deep to turn back. The days grew shorter as the elders' patrols tightened their net. The sense of dread was a physical thing, pressing down on Rylas with every step she took. Aaron's condition improved, but the risk multiplied. Rylas tried to keep her routine unchanged, but suspicion was in the air. Fellow trainees glanced her way more often. An elder's gaze lingered too long. In the secret places where she and Aaron met, the lines between enemy and friend had vanished. The law still existed, but it no longer commanded her loyalty. One evening, as she delivered a small cache of supplies, she found Aaron working quietly, piecing together a distress beacon from scraps. He smiled, thin but real, and said he almost had it. Rylus knew hope was dangerous. It invited mistakes. But she also knew she wanted him to escape, even as she feared what would happen if he tried. That night, the inevitable happened. The city's alarm shrieked, a violation detected in the dead spires. Rylus raced toward their meeting spot, heart pounding, but she was too late. Elders' enforcers had found Aaron, dragged him away in chains. His eyes searched the crowd for her, unflinching, and she could only watch as he was marched through the city, silent and unbowed. The trial was swift and public. The elders denounced Rylus, laying bare her actions. They didn't rage about broken laws or spilled secrets. Instead, they spoke of contagion, of the rot that follows when the wrong questions are allowed to take root. Their fear was naked now, not of human weapons, but of the way humans refuse to submit. The trial became a warning, not just to Rylus, but to every watching Vicroni. She was sentenced to exile. Aaron, they said, would be erased from their world. But exile felt hollow. It wasn't fear that filled her. It was the sense of waste, the knowledge that something vital was being stamped out. Aaron, even in captivity, remained stubborn, calm. Rylus saw others watching, too, their faces uncertain. Doubt had spread like a fever, subtle but real. Some looked at her not with hatred, but with questions in their eyes. Before the guards took her away, she caught Aaron's gaze one last time. He nodded, slow, deliberate, a silent promise. Rylus understood in that moment that the elders' greatest weapon was obedience, but their greatest weakness was their inability to inspire it without fear. As she was led from the city, she knew she could not accept this ending. Even in exile, Rylus found no peace. Each day outside the walls made her resolve sharpen. She could not shake Aaron's words, or the clarity of his defiance. The elders had exposed their true fear to the whole city, and the first seeds of rebellion had been sown, not just in Rylus, but in others who had watched and wondered. Aaron was more than a threat. He was a mirror, forcing her people to confront the cracks in their own traditions. And as the stars wheeled overhead, Rylus made a vow. Her story was not over, and neither was his. Exile was supposed to break her, to strip her of purpose and hope, but each day away from the city only sharpened Rylus's determination. Rumors drifted on the winds, of unrest in the capital, of questions spreading where none had dared to ask before. She moved through the wastelands, learning to live as Aaron had, adapting, surviving, always watching. It was in this wild, lawless space that she found others, outcasts and doubters, who had seen the trial, who remembered Aaron's refusal to bow and the elders' visible fear. They gathered in the abandoned mining tunnels and frost-shattered valleys, voices low but hearts ignited by defiance. Rylus told them what she had seen, what Aaron had shown her, that survival was not only strength, but also compassion and will. She spoke of a different kind of power, the kind that came from standing together, from refusing to accept fear as destiny. One by one, others joined, drawn by the possibility of something better. In the shadows, a network of rebellion began to form, hidden from the elders' gaze but growing bolder every day. Meanwhile, Aaron was not forgotten. Word spread that he had not been executed but held deep within the city's labyrinthine prisons, a living symbol of the law's fragility. For Rylus, the path was clear. She and her small band mapped patrols, bribed minor officials, and exploited the elders' confidence. With patience learned from months in exile and tactics born from desperation, they broke into the depths beneath the city on the night of the Red Star. The escape was fast, silent, and brutal. They freed Aaron, battered but alive, and fled into the wilds before the alarm could even finish its wail. The aftermath rippled across Vicros. The elders tightened their grip, but resistance had already taken root. More joined Rylus, young and old, soldiers and workers, each carrying a piece of her defiance. Aaron, though still recovering, taught them to use the ruins and wastes to their advantage. Their first attacks were small: sabotage, disrupted convoys, vanished patrols. The elders responded with violence and propaganda, but the more they tightened their fist, the more unity blossomed among the rebels. For the first time in memory, the law was openly challenged. Rylus looked at the faces around her, hard, hopeful, transformed by the simple proof that another way was possible. She realized what the elders had always feared, that humans didn't need to conquer with weapons. They conquered by example, by reminding the world that obedience was not the only option. As the first open skirmishes broke the horizon, and the fate of Vikros hung in the balance, Rylus understood her people would never be the same. The age of unchallenged rule was over. What came next would be hard and uncertain, but it would be their own.